Good evening and welcome to the Canadian Football Fanatics podcast. Everyone tuning in tonight, we appreciate you guys so much. This is CFF Weekly show number 12 already, and as you can see, I am joined by my main man, Shane. Blake, unfortunately, not able to join us here tonight. I know he is on some vacation time for the next few weeks, so we hope Blake, is enjoying himself. Shane, thanks for joining me, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, like always, to have me on, and hopefully, I do Blake justice by replacing him as the second co-host for today's episode.
I'm sure you'll do just fine. Looking forward to talking some ball, man. Obviously, our two teams are meeting up here on a nice home and home for each other. A lot of stuff to talk about. Obviously, Toronto's getting a quarterback. Montreal is continuing to look good, and they also got nice added piece as well. So, a lot to talk about. Before we get into the 3-minute drill, we're going to bring up Coach right now because I see him backstage. Coach, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm living, baby. How you doing? Everybody good?
Oh, we're doing great,
Good.
doing great. Like I was talking to Shane a little bit off camera, a little bit tired, but as soon as you hit live on here and you get a little bit of energy and excited to talk some ball with you fellas. So, as always, Coach, we're going to get into a 3-minute drill here before we get into some news and notes. Just recapping last week's action in the CFL in 3 minutes or less. Sound good, guys?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. All right, last week on Thursday, Ottawa found a way to win in Calgary, 31-29. It was a very emotional win for one Jeremiah Masoli, making his first start since I believe July of last year, so well over a year. And Lewis Ward was able to kick once again one of his many walk-off field goals to give Ottawa the win in Calgary. Pretty impressive that Ottawa was able to find a way to get a victory here with a little, Drew Brown going down. Jeremiah Masoli, I think, myself included, a lot of question marks going into, the game last week to, was he going to be rusty? Was he not? How was he going to perform? And he did just enough to get his team a victory. And, kudos to him, and definitely thinking about him when TSN was showing him, post game and stuff like that, being emotional and stuff like that, was hard not to feel good for him. So that was the first matchup of the week. Montreal took down SAS 27-24. Once again, Montreal was able to find a way to win. Davis Alexander led a field goal drive a game-winning drive with a little over 2 minutes to go, and Saskatchewan had a opportunity to tie the game with, I believe, a Montreal Alouettes missed extra point, only up 3 points, and Brett Lauthard missed his fourth field goal of the game and wasn't able to send the game to overtime. Was a very exciting finish. It looked like the game was going to go to overtime. We were going to get a little extra football, but once again, Montreal just finds ways to keep winning. They improved to 9-1 and had Saskatchewan another loss on the season. The third matchup of the week was the threes running wild here. The Edmonton Elks picking up their third straight victory over the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Coming into the game from a Tiger Cats perspective, a little bit of a head scratcher with Taylor Powell starting instead of Bo Levi Mitchell, who I think has been having himself a pretty good season so far. But I think like halfway through the third quarter, it was a very lopsided game. I want to say maybe high 20s to about 3 or something like that. Hamilton was able to make it look a little bit closer than the game actually felt for a majority of that game. But the Elks have finally kind of hit their stride now and have been able to close out some of these games that they weren't able to earlier in the season. They took it 47-22. And the last game of the week was the Bombers taking care of business in BC and basically shutting them down for the last two meetings here. Defensively, it seems like the Bombers have been able to hit their stride here, and their offense is doing just enough. I'd still like to see a little bit more from Zach Collaros, but like I mentioned, defense doing enough. Brady Oliveira chipping in, and then them doing enough offensively. So that will end 3-minute drill for this week, boys. Usually I swing it to Blake and ask him kind of what stood out from last week's action. So I'll do the same, but I'll throw it to Shane first. What stood out to you from last week's action?
I mean, overall, it was Saskatchewan, right? You got the 4 missed field goals, which, I mean, sure, you want to put that loss on Brett, go right ahead. But at the same time, you only generate 2 touchdowns offensively. You got to settle for 6 field goals, excluding the game tying one. I don't know. I feel like it's easy to point fingers on that loss, considering he went 3 for 7. But if you're Saskatchewan, settling for those field goals, only getting to the red zone twice all game, there's more to be done for that team. But yeah, I think that was the big one for me, was that offense with Trevor Harris looked better than it did with Shea Patterson. But like we've seen before with Harris, he puts up a lot of yards, doesn't put up a lot of points.
Coach, I will ask you the same question. What stood out to you from last week's action?
I think when it comes to the Riders, that was the game for us to win. It seems that when we play teams, we either stoop to their level or we haven't risen to the occasion. Offense looked a little better with Trevor, but it seems like we had to rely on the big plays, and there were times where we didn't play. It seemed like the game was not. We left a little more out there. They left us wanting more, if that makes sense. Now, for me, defensively, we just couldn't tackle. That touchdown from Davis Alexander, where everybody said he stepped out of bounds. He didn't step out of bounds. He was in bounds. He was by a toenail. You saw the angle. They was bad angles, bad tackling angles. Weren't closing the gap. We left our fundamentals in the locker room. It's easy to blame Brett, but like Shane said, 2 touchdowns out of what? And we have what? How many field goal attempts, Shane?
There were 7 total, including the game, like going for the game tying one.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, you also had 1 missed field goal that gets brought back for a touchdown. If that's not okay, if he hits it, it doesn't happen. But as a special teams unit, you got to tackle. You got to keep your contain, keep your lanes, and not let that guy bring it back out of the end zone, let alone bring him all the way back for a touchdown. That's just unacceptable.
But it's just like I said, it just ties into our fundamentals. We lacked fundamentals. We lacked in moments where it was crucial moments where we could have just held them to a field goal. That would have made a difference. But nope, Davis got in there, and hey, we move forward and get ready for the next one.
All right, boys. I'm glad Coach mentioned it about the was he in, was he out kind of situation that was going on social media afterwards. People taking pictures of all these angles and stuff like that. It kind of reminded me of that the blue dress or gold dress type thing, depending on who you were or how you looked at it. But I'm glad you made your opinion felt, Coach. But let's get into some news and notes here, boys. And I was going to start with some lines, but we're going to kind of pivot here on the fly. Talked a little bit, or talked enough about some lines and the disappointment. So we're gonna hold off for now. But because you guys brought up Saskatchewan and both kind of went there. Excuse me, fellas. But who do you guys think maybe is kind of in the, I guess, front seat now of the Western Division, with Saskatchewan and BC really free falling, like I put kind of in the title here tonight. Winnipeg, they are kind of getting some wins here, but at 4-6, I believe, still on the season. I think a lot to be desired. I mentioned offensively, Zach Collaros, I believe, after the game now is 5 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. So overall, not great still offensively. They're just finding ways to win. So, early in the season still, but this is the halfway mark where we're about to, get to Labor Day and games really matter. So as of now, who do you guys maybe have the most confidence in the Western Division right now? I'll go to Coach first.
Ooh, it's our division to lose right now. It's the Riders' division to lose, but I think the hottest team right now is Winnipeg. Everybody was talking about Winnipeg, and they're the team. I even said earlier in the season, do not sleep on Winnipeg. When they get healthy, they're going to be a problem. They have enough vets. They have enough youth. Brady's starting to churn out some yards. They got Kenny back. Their defense is looking mighty nice right now. I'm liking what I see from Winnipeg's defense. And Winnipeg is Winnipeg or Edmonton for me. That's just how I'm looking at it.
Shane?
I mean, I agree with Winnipeg. I think with how Saskatchewan and BC have started to kind of go down, with BC losing 4 in a row, I think Winnipeg has kind of turned it around. And you're going into a very important weekend. Saskatchewan plays Toronto this week, so depending on how that goes, I mean, Winnipeg's playing Hamilton. So, I don't want to say it's an easy win, because no game in this league is an easy win, but they should be able to go in there, get the win, or they should be able to host them, get the win, and go into that Labor Day Classic, that back-to-back against Saskatchewan. And in my opinion, that's what's going to decide the West. If Saskatchewan can get 2 wins against Winnipeg, if Winnipeg get 2 wins, that flips the entire West Division upside down. But I honestly, I mean, no offense to BC, I think it's between Saskatchewan and Winnipeg right now. I think they're the two most complete teams in the West. I'm still not sold on Edmonton with McLeod Bethel Thompson. I want to see what he does this week. And then you go right into the Calgary matchups. So I'm not sold on Edmonton. I think it's Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and I think BC can turn it around, but I'm not very optimistic that they can. They should be considered a front runner to win the West right now.
Yeah,
Can I add
go
something
ahead,
there?
Coach. Yep.
I was gonna add that if Edmonton can pull off 2 more wins in a row, a 5-game win streak, I think they can take BC out and knock them out the hunt.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they played Montreal this week, if they can get a win against Montreal, that's massive momentum going into a back-to-back against Calgary. So like, you do that, you're at 6-7 on the year. When you go into the last 7 weeks of the season, 6 weeks of the season, this is going to be a very interesting. I don't think any team in the West is like a clear cut runaway favorite. Even Calgary can do it if their offense could kind of find consistency going forward.
If coach's cousin could find his groove.
Hey, it's not just him. I've said it before. It's not just him. That entire team needs to kind of figure it out. This is going to be a very interesting rest of the year that we haven't seen in the West for quite a while now. It always seems like one team, it'd be Edmonton with Michael Riley, Calgary with Bo Levi, Winnipeg with Caleros. It always seems like there's that one runaway team by Labor Day weekend who's just kind of running away with the West, and the East is kind of sputtering. This year, it's flipped. Right? Montreal's running away with the East. Every team in the West right now has a chance to make the playoffs. No team is officially out of it right now.
Which is good for us, but I agree with you guys to be a little bit boring here. Unfortunately, I'd love to say BC, but I think Winnipeg having BC's number in big games and in even regular season big games in playoffs obviously as well, but their pedigree, they've been there, they've done that. So I think as of now, for sure, I'd put my chips behind them. But it's like I said, halfway mark, and it's any team's game, like Shane just said as well. Anyone can get in, and anyone can fall as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the second half of the season goes. So let's kind of get into BC and the Bombers game last Sunday. I was obviously able to be there. Coach, unfortunately, we missed out in seeing you. But very I talked about it with Blake on the show on Monday. Came back down to earth, obviously, Lions fans, Rourke fans, and it's been a tough month or so. I'd even say 4 of 6 games, we've been kind of getting by just barely, and then the losing streak of the last month here. So it's been tough, but I just keep the little bit of positivity because Saskatchewan's in the same boat as us, and then Winnipeg, for the time being, is still below us. So hopefully, I can continue to say that for a few more weeks, and the Lions are able to find their groove. But what are your guys' thoughts about the Lions kind of really in no man's land right now? Obviously, losing 4 straight, but I think this is a very critical time for them to either find their groove and kind of to rise to the occasion, or they could be in store for a really depressing back half of the season. So, Shane, what are your thoughts, kind of BC wise?
They need to split this back-to-back against Ottawa, but there's no way you lose the next 2. You drop to 5 and 7. You can't do it with how the West is shaping up. I've stated it from week 1 to now that defense just has not been good enough. That secondary continues to give up big plays. I know Blake mentioned it on Twitter when I posted it, saying that, what do you expect from a defense that's on the field for 40 plus minutes a game? And I understand it. Offense still needs to be better. But there were times where you could have gotten off the field and you gave up a big chunk play and kept the drive alive for Winnipeg. I think Nathan Rourke will come if he's going to continue to start. He will find his groove. He will find where he needs to be. Expecting him to come out and put up 300 and some yards after 3 days of practice just seems extremely unrealistic. So I'm not worried in that regard. If VA comes back and he starts over Nathan, either quarterback will lead them. But I think defensively they need to stop giving up the big play. And it's not going to get any easier. Ottawa has some big play threats. They need to at least win one of the next 2. get to at least 6-6. If they go down to 5-7, they're going to be competing for that third. I don't see them being able to flip the switch unless Saskatchewan or Winnipeg falls off over the next 2 weeks too. Like if Saskatchewan, beats Winnipeg twice, and Calgary and Edmonton split two of their back-to-back. I think BC, if they need to control it, they need to at least go 1-1, and ideally they go 2-0 over the next 2 weeks, and kind of start to take control of their position in the West instead of letting other teams dictate where they're going to fall.
Coach, what are your thoughts?
I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed, and they're playing like a middle of the pack defense statistically. Shane can vouch for that. Statistically, they're just middle of the pack. They couldn't cover sheep shit in shallow water. I mean, and I'm disappointed also because the only big play that they had, 2 big plays they had, was Sione getting a couple sacks and TJ Lee's interception, but they didn't make anything out of that offensively. Hatch had an incredible catch that was incomplete. That was one of the best catches I've seen from him ever. But as far as Nathan Rourke goes, Shane's the stat guy, but I got the stats right here of Nathan Rourke. 8 of 25 passing, 32%, 126 yards, 2 interceptions, 39 yards was his longest pass, and an average of 5 yards a pass. What did you expect? Everybody was expecting Kid Canada to come in here and light it up and throw for 300, almost 400 against a very good secondary. Dedrick Nichols, Tyrell Ford, Brandon Alexander, that secondary, which they're battle-tested. Tyrell Ford's having an outstanding season right now, but I'm just disappointed in the defense. And it's not even – they're not aggressive. They're not aggressive. Even when they're going in for tackles, they're not aggressive. They're not gang tackling. I know they got some injuries, but you still got to play through that. You still got his next man up, and it's not what I'm used to seeing from them. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, so I don't know how to kind of come at this because it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself. Obviously, you guys have been joining us every Wednesday, that I've been very critical of the defense. But I would disagree that I think that they've held them in the last 4 games pretty much, dating back, I would even think to the first Calgary loss. I believe they lost 25-24. They held them to 25 points. Now, obviously, that's not great. You go to the Winnipeg loss, obviously 25-0, 25 points or none. The offense just didn't show up. And then these last 2 losses, I believe Edmonton Elks won 33-16, which the game in the fourth quarter until that Falinako running into the punter gave them an extra possession was 19-16. So they had the offense in the game up to that point. And I would say for the last 4 weeks, it's been the offense's inability to score points, keep on the field to give their defense a little bit of a break, as well as Ben Halata not being in the lineup, Josh Woods already being down to a season-ending injury. So they played with Ace Ely and a little bit of Olacumbo and a little bit of Ryder Varga. That's not an excuse. Obviously, I've been very critical about the finishing and playmaking ability, the making plays when it matters and stuff like that, where in some of these games, are they doing enough to win? Yes. But where they could be a game changer, I agree with you guys from that standpoint. But if you guys go back, they've held in the last 4 losses, they've held this team in the game, giving them opportunities to win. Have they played great? Absolutely not. Have they played to their style of play? I don't think so. I think Ryan Phillips has been the first one to say that, and Coach Campbell has been very critical of them to say, this isn't the defense. But if you actually think about it, it's the offense's inability to score points, get first downs, stay on the field, and be at the pace, I guess, that they were. And I hate to use the word pace, but be at the level of play that they were to start the season. So do I want to see more from the BC Lions defense? 100%. And especially, I guess, to what I guess maybe Shane is more speaking of a Grey Cup contending defense, then yes, I agree with you. But to say that the defense hasn't done enough in the last 4 weeks is in my opinion, I just think it's wrong, because they've held them in each 4 of the last 4 games, and that's if you go watch the games again, that's like 20/20 vision in my opinion. But
I mean,
just my 2 cents.
I mean, I don't think anyone's saying that the offense hasn't been a problem. I think we can all agree that the offense has struggled as well. But I think overall the defense hasn't been able to get off the field when they should be. They give up big plays I think, again, it's all about timing, right? Like, it seems like when they get beat bad. There's no, like, if they have to be perfect. Even when the offense was doing its thing this year, it always felt like they couldn't play mistake-free football and get away with it. I think that's the problem with BC, is that now because the offense is struggling, their defense still has to play mistake-free football. It's just now being kind of a bigger spotlight on it because the offense isn't outscoring teams. So
their offense has scored 2 touchdowns offensively in the last 2 weeks, and their David Mackey quarterback sneaks.
yeah,
Just
that's
so
what I'm
you
saying
know.
though, is that I think
But I know, but if the defense needs to get off the field, the offense needs to stay on the field.
yeah, but I'm saying, like, this isn't, like, at least for me, like, from my, I mean, you know, I've been vocal about the BC defense all season. This isn't some, like, new, like, the last 4 weeks opinion. I've been critical of the BC's defense since week
So
1.
have I, though.
So that's what I'm saying, is I think the issues on defense are being highlighted or put a bigger spotlight because the offense has also been now an issue. Right? When you're winning games by putting up 30 plus points, you're able to kind of hide the defensive problems. Now with the offense struggling and not being able to put up 25 plus points, 30 plus points on every given night, you're starting to see those defensive issues at a greater efficiency, a greater length, because you're not getting masked by the offensive production. Like, there's no more, oh, well, sure, they gave up 28 points, they gave up almost 400 yards, they still walked away with the win. It's like, oh, they gave up almost 400 yards, gave up 20 some points, they walked away with a loss. So yes, the offense struggles because they only scored 11. But the defense, did they do enough to stop the opponents? And I think, that's a question that I've had all year long. This isn't anything new for me. So I'm just saying, like, you're seeing more defensive focus because the offense isn't producing. If the offense started to produce, I don't think anyone's really talking about the defensive woes that they've had. They've had a subpar pass rush and a subpar, secondary all season. It's just now being more noticed because the offense isn't producing.
So then, if they're third in sacks, the rest of the 5 other teams are subpar in sacks and stuff like that. I agree with you, though, but, like, we got to realistically look at it too from a league perspective. If they're subpar and they're putting up, like I said, I was critical of it too. I called them out the last few weeks of not putting up enough sacks. But you were the one that said, look at it. They are third in sacks last week. I believe
they've been a bottom 3 by stats, by yards given up per game. Both their rush defense and their pass defense for most of the year have been bottom 3. So I think you can't ignore that, right? Just because the offense is not putting up points now, you can't just get away from the fact that consistently throughout the year they've been a bottom 3 secondary and a bottom 3 run defense. Now you're just starting to see those problems because the offense isn't putting up points anymore.
At the end of the day, y'all. At the end of the day, look, if you could even ask RP or anybody that plays defense. What's your main job? Stop the offense. Drop your nuts and play defense. When the offense isn't putting points on the board, there's holes in the defense that get brought to the light. They look slow. They're not playing up to par. And we could talk about the stats. I agree with Shane. I also agree with you, Cole. But at the end of the day, you still got to go out there and drop your nuts. I don't care if your defense is out there for 40 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Your job is to stop whoever you're playing, whether it's Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, whoever it is. You need to go make stops, and you just got to drop your nuts. And that's something that they haven't done. They haven't done it at a point where they can actually be consistent and actually put some points on the board as a defense or create turnovers at a rate where the offense is in a good field position where they can get, if you cut off the field and you get a turnover or you stop them, hey, offense can put points on the board. It makes their job a lot easier, but it just makes me mad because we know what their defense can do. They just look slow. They look tired. They look like I'll never question a football player's effort, but they are out there a lot. Still got to drop your nuts. Go play.
And here's the thing: as someone who defended Ottawa's defense since 2019, because they were on the field for 40 plus minutes a night, and by the third or fourth quarter, at the end of the third quarter through the fourth, you could tell that like being on the field that long was starting to wear on them. I get how how a non-effective offense can directly affect defensive stats, right? Like I understand that, I get it, but at the same time, like Coach said, you still got to go out and make plays. You still got to try to be a difference maker, and I haven't seen that on defense enough. And again, you know, Rick Campbell's a good coach. You know, Ryan Phillips is a great DC. They can turn it around. I just don't know how quickly they can turn it around before it becomes an issue.
Especially late into the season. Like this is about, we're going into Labor Day. It's about that time where, hey, are we gonna make the same excuses for them in October when it's too late? Can we make those same excuses? No. They're gonna make that. They'll make the postseason. But if they're playing the way they're playing right now in the postseason, they're gonna get knocked out early. But that's down the road.
And here's the thing:
yeah,
like
as a team
BC,
for sure.
Like BC's all in their control their path. They have six out of the remaining 8 games are against East Division opponents.
Right.
Then to the Stampeders and the Rough Riders once more each, and then it's Ottawa twice, and then Montreal twice, Hamilton and Toronto once. So they control where they want to end up. So like these losses to Winnipeg kind of suck because you lost that tiebreaker to them. So if you end up in a tie, not Edmonton as well. Like that sucks. But at the end of the day, you go and you win 5 of these 6 games against the East, and you're 10-5. You win 1 or 2 more. You win 1 against Calgary or 1 against Saskatchewan. You end the season at like what, 11-7. You probably finish second in the West. You're hosting the West semis. Like, right? They just have to go out and win. They are the only team, in my opinion, in the West that controls their destiny.
Yeah.
Because of how little they play the West. Like they've gone through all their West games. All they got to do is win against the East. And if they can win against the East, get those games, get those wins, they will take at least no worse than the second in the West. And I mean, it's not easy. You got Ottawa back-to-back. You got Montreal, and I think Toronto. Your next 4 games. You got to go at least. You're probably looking to go 3-1, 2-2 at worst. But again, I think, you know, Nathan Rourke, given more practice time, should be fine. Or Vernon Adams comes back, should be fine. I'm not panicking if I'm a BC Lions fan because they can control their own destiny better than almost any other team in the West, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so small hot take here quickly. Blake mentioned on Monday night when we went live, he mentioned that his thoughts were that Coach Campbell would be fired if BC was to go lose back-to-back here to Ottawa. I know Shane and I kind of just talked about they need to split the next 2 weeks. I kind of agree as well, but to go back to my main point there, I agree with you guys. Everything up until the last 4 weeks, because I remind you, the offense has scored 11, 16, 0, and 20 points in the last 4 weeks. So I agree with you guys, but the offense just needs to do better. So that's just my 2 cents. And to get off this topic before we keep going around in circles, let's move to the East Division. And Montreal, as I mentioned, just keeps winning. They are now 9-1 here on the season. They get the addition of Austin Mack back with, Tyson Philpott. KGG been dealing with an injury. Tyson Philpott going to the 6th game. I believe Kaelon Julian Grant still has a few more games on his 6th game as well. So they've been making it work with the pieces that they have around Davis Alexander. Guys stepping up to the occasion, and then they get back last year one of last year's best receivers in the league. Obviously had a little stint with the Atlanta Falcons, if I'm not mistaken, and is coming back to the CFL in mid-season with the reigning champs and the team that's been in a league of their own so far. So, Shane, what do you think this does for Montreal and their offense with Cody Fajardo also coming back this week?
I mean, he becomes the number 1 guy with Philpott out, right? Like, I think that's kind of a given. He'll be the number 1 receiver with Philpott out. I'm interested to see what happens with the offense when Philpott comes back in. But I mean, Montreal's going to run away with it. They're going to be the top team in the East. They're going to be the top team in the league. I don't see them not winning at least 4 games the rest of the way. I think they end up at I don't know if they challenge Toronto Toronto's like 16-2 record last year, I mean they could. Like I wouldn't hold it past them to get to 16 wins. This is a damn good football team. That defense, statistically, is a top 2 defense in the league. I just, man, the rich get richer. That's all I gotta say. You got
There's like no holes on their team.
the only hole is their run defense. Like realistically, I think like overall their only hole is their run defense. They're kind of a middle of the pack run defense team, but they bend and don't break. They're second in points given up so far through the year. They're top 3 in or bottom, like top 3 in passing yards given up, or bottom 3 technically. They're a middle of the pack team in rushing yards given up. It's just you can't score off of them. Like they've only given up 20 touchdowns on the year. And 16 of them have been offensive touchdowns. So they're giving up 4 special teams touchdowns, or defensive touchdowns. Like, I don't know, man. This team is the rich get richer. Fajardo's back. Mac is back. It's a scary time in the East, to be fair. Like I feel a lot. I would have felt a lot more comfortable away against last year's Toronto team than this year's Montreal team.
Feels like back to back, honestly, but it's still a long way to go. There's a lot of injuries, all that stuff could happen. So, Coach, what are your thoughts?
Hot take. I don't like doing a lot of hot takes, but this is the one that I'm gonna say it. We might be looking at the greatest team ever when it's all said and done.
I thought you were gonna go the other way.
No, we when you look at that roster, the depth, the weaponry, offensively, it's disgusting. And they've been just so consistent. And every game, it's somebody different. Whether it was Charleston or Reggie or Tyson, now you add Austin, or if it was Walter. Bev's going Bev. It's either going to be Bev or Roland Milligan that's going to win the most outstanding defensive player.
Okay, question. Is it a hot take to say that MOP might be 2 defensive, like the finalists for MOP might be 2 defensive players?
I think if VA doesn't play, like that's 100% a possibility.
No, I love it. I love that defensive guy.
Outside of VA and Phil Pop up until his injury, I don't think there was another offensive player that was out producing what Milligan and Beverett were doing this season.
Well, I think if Bo had a winning record, Bo would run away with it statistically, just how he's playing. But if they had a winning record, but I'll say it's great to see defensive guys doing their job, and they'll be in the conversation. But let me add this though. Can you add Janarian Grant in that conversation?
I don't think yet, but like I'm not trying to argue against him. I think it's just because like we've never seen like a returner in that conversation. I don't think like
Brandon Banks.
I mean, I wouldn't use Brandon Banks, but like there's been other returners. Yeah. But I want to see like I don't know if you can put like just a special teams player. Like I know he's starting to do stuff on offense. Mm-hmm. If he can get up to like 600-700 yards the back half of the season in terms of like offensive yards while producing the way he has been on special teams, I think he deserves to be in the conversation.
Like 4 or 5?
5.
Yeah. Like I mean, he definitely deserves to be in the conversation. He has over 1,200 return yards.
Already?
He's at like 600 and like 670.
Jesus Christ.
Like, because I was doing the article to like.
Has anybody ever been 1,000 and 1,000? Has that ever been done?
Not so. Special teams, I don't think so.
I mean, that would probably do it.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to win Special Team Player of the Year. There's no
ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Like unless he gets hurt, which knock on wood he doesn't,
or another dread pulled out,
or Sean White beats the most consecutive field goals too.
See, here's the thing. It's also Lewis Ward. He's on pace to break the CFL record for most field goals in a season with 66.
But see, you know, and even though we're talking hot takes, I do want to get back to the Montreal thing. I will say, like I said, if it's all said and done, and they're gonna get Lemon back. So we are looking at back-to-back seasons where two teams potentially could what? So Toronto was 16-2. This team might go. This team might not lose another game if they stay. Health is the one thing. Health and just staying healthy in general. We might be looking at the greatest team on the field.
Obviously, I agree with the health, but even they've been banged up here, and they still find ways to win. It's unbelievable, man.
This
It's
is what happens when you have a team that buys in to what the coach is selling. And like, I refuse to believe that. Like, not the biggest Cody Fajardo fan. He definitely had his issues in Saskatchewan, but you can't sit here and tell me that Jason Moss and Cody Fajardo were the problem in Saskatchewan when they were there. There's no way you can convince me. And I mean, even when Moss was in Edmonton, there's no way to convince me that he was the problem in Edmonton or in Saskatchewan when he was there.
It's about having the right pieces to buy into your program as a coach, having the right staff around you, and everybody, like you said, everybody buy into what you're selling. And even they're coming off of a great cup. The way and the momentum just after everybody picked them to finish last season, this team, I love what they're doing. Just stay healthy, and hey, the East is up in the air for them to take.
I'm excited to see it, man. They're like I said, to me they have no holes. Obviously, maybe the run defense, like Shane mentioned, but like names and body wise, man, they have players everywhere, and it's really impressive, and it's fun to watch when Montreal's playing. So let's get into it, boys. I had to put it into the title. As you guys know, I've been avoiding mentioning his name all year, though, but this is the time. We have to do it, fellas. We are a football show. When news happens, we have to talk about it. Now, of course, I thought about using a little bit of clickbait. I obviously put him in the title. Was going to throw him in the thumbnail, but I put Kadeem Carey instead. But we have to talk about it. You know, all the big three down, the Waggles all talked about it. What are your guys' thoughts with Fuckface coming back? And do you think that this does any sort of thing for Toronto? I'll go with Shane first.
Go first, Coach. Go first.
All right. Well, let me preface this by saying, fuck Chad Kelly, the diddler. I will say, Chad shoots himself in the fucking foot every single time some success happens to him. They were pushing him and he was going to be the face of the league. We saw Chad Kelly everywhere. He was doing media in the offseason before everything came out. He was doing all the media stuff and they was pushing him. And now we ain't going to get on all the details about it, but still for the team and for the Argonauts, he's the reigning MOP. He had 11 games with over 250 passing yards. He's very consistent. And he's efficient to a degree. Am I right, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, last year I'm pretty sure he was the highest rating quarterbacks in terms of efficiency rating and completion percentage. I think he was like 1 or 2 in both categories.
But he's also turnover prone. 4 games where he threw 2 interceptions. He had 12 picks on the season. You can get to him, but he's meant for that offense. That offense is meant for him. Dinwiddie has done a great job at disguise, except for in the East Final where he got exposed. They could say, oh, he had a concussion or whatever. No, that motherfucker got exposed. He can't handle a lot of blitzes coming his way. He can't control the game in certain situations when the blitz is coming. But, hey, he's got Kadeem Carey back there, hand the ball off. The defense is solid. I mean, that's the only
O-line protecting him.
That O-line is incredible. That O-line is phenomenal. But he's their quarterback, highest paid guy. Fuck Chad Kelly and all that. So whatever.
Shane?
Man, I
hope he plays bad. Like, I don't want to talk about him either. But like, what if he plays good? Like, we got to talk about him next week.
He's gonna play good. Like, I think like Chad Kelly, and I agree with Coach. Dude just keeps shooting himself in the foot. Dude had the skill. I mean, he has the skill. It's not like he lost it, but he came in. He put up ridiculous numbers last year. He put up 4,000 passing yards. He, it was a 23-12 touchdown interception last year. He had 4 games over 300 yards.
Yep.
Like he went 15-1. Dude had a CFL Hall of Fame career on a silver platter, just waiting for him to go. And and you know what? He just can't. He just keeps shooting himself in the foot. Like, I don't know, man.
He's been doing this since Ole Miss. He's been doing this since the NFL.
And you know what? If he had hopefully he took this time to reflect, and if he was dealing with anything mentally, he took this time to deal with it and get the help if he needed the help. But man, you had a CFL Hall of Fame career on a platter. You had a post TSN career lined up doing college football, NCAA football. Like, you had everything just lined up perfectly for you, and you blow it. Like, there's no way that you can come back from this. I don't care if you put up 5 straight 5,000-yard passing seasons. Like, no way you get back from this. So I don't care how he does the rest of the year. Like, if he flames out, he flames out. Toronto moves on. But I don't even know if Toronto moves on from him next year. Like, Chef, I'm very convinced that Toronto is going to keep him next year. They're going to continue to roll with him. It's that last chance agreement. Then I'm kind of curious on what's in it.
Your last chance, motherfucker. That's what it is.
With Manziel, it was drug and alcohol related. He had to pass drug tests. If he failed the drug test, he was out. He's been open and honest about it.
If it ain't drugs, alcohol, females, the 3 vices that every man falls for. So what else could it be? What else? I don't
know. I don't know. So I'm very curious on how strict this last chance agreement is, and how thin of a line he has before it's you're gone. I'm very curious on how thin of ice that last chance agreement is. Is it, man, he has one bad, encounter with a fan, or one bad blowout during the off season. I'm very curious on what this last chance agreement, the details and the minor details in this agreement are. Just I don't know. I also don't agree with him being back in the league. You don't want to promote that stuff. I don't care if he did probably there's some CBA BS that, this is the best they can do. I don't know, but I don't know how you can be a CFL fan, preach, workplace, culture, positive culture, an inclusive culture, and then be okay with him coming back into the league. I don't know how you can do it.
Okay. Let's be real for a second. Nobody on the face of this earth is perfect. Everybody,
not at all.
Everybody, we got skeletons. Hell, I got a graveyard. And we all make mistakes and fuck up, and we want to be forgiven. But if you have a track record of consistently fucking up in college, the NFL, and then you go to the CFL and you fuck up, there is no place for that. And I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to judge this man. Well, fuck him. But I'm looking at it as, well, like you said, you had it on a silver platter. You were the face for a fart in the wind. You were the face of the league, and you fucked that up. I don't give a damn what training, what help, whatever. Chad has to want to do it for himself. You can't just sit here and rely on your uncle's great name and think that you're entitled to some shit. That's where people forget that shit. They forget who his uncle is, Jim Kelly, who was a badass quarterback in the NFL. That name carries weight in the NFL, in the football circle.
Yep.
So I don't want to hear shit about, and I'm mad. I'm genuinely pissed off because he did shit that just didn't make no fucking sense when he was already in trouble. He got Twitter fingers, he's got burner accounts, he's got worse of a burner account than Kevin Durant. And I just, he acted like shit didn't happen. That's a sign of a psycho. When a motherfucker just acts like everything is Gucci. No, motherfucker, you are supposed to be the face of a franchise. You're the highest paid dude, and you just go play.
Yeah,
Go play.
I'm very interested because like if he does really well, it's gonna like people are gonna talk about it. But man, if they sputter and like they lose, I feel bad for the guys in the locker room who have to deal with that. Because like people are not going to be forgiving. There's no excuses. Like they have to win out, basically. Like if they get blown out, if the offense struggles, this, that, and the other thing, there will be a line of people who are like, this is what you get. Like you signed up for this. You should have known what to expect, this, that, and the other thing. It's going to be, attacking, which, you know what, sure, go for it. But man, it's a tough look on the league, but I don't think it's something they can't overcome depending on how the next, 4 months go to a year.
Okay, but okay, Cole, let me pose this question to y'all, and then we can let Cole say his piece. This is the question for y'all. What did Chad Kelly do to earn the shit that he got and get basically a slap on a 9-game suspension, which to me was a slap on the wrist?
Because he put up numbers. People were
Well,
tuning in to watch CFL
Well,
games.
fuck.
I don't personally think that like it was a slap on the wrist because of the numbers and the ratings. I'm just curious on how much this PA played involved in the CBA, right? Because it wasn't like a criminal case. Because we've seen the CFL come down pretty hard on criminal cases.
Right.
Right. This was a civil case, so like things that does change what the league can do, right? Like the league took Messam, who was a top 3 running back at the time, and kicked him out of the league because he had a charge. They've done it multiple times. They're not scared of, hey, if you are criminally charged with something, you're not allowed you're not part of this league. So I'm curious on what's like if there's anything in the CBA that potentially affected the decision.
Yeah, I don't want to get down this rabbit hole because I know I don't want to fire up coach number 1, but I would think in that scenario, like, let's just be honest, I would think that the race card comes in. That's a black running back who obviously got handed his ass.
No,
and a
because
white.
no,
I see, but just like from what I would think, right? Listen, if you just hear me out before. So Chad Kelly comes in, right, to the Argos, who are they're fluttering in terms of engaging with their fan base. They kind of get ignited with obviously MBT first, but then they have this guy who's winning the MOP. Like I mentioned, I don't agree with it. I'm not on board with it, but I'm just saying, like, from a business, money, TV, all the ratings wise, he's putting up numbers. He's putting people back in seats. MLSE is probably loving it, and also probably, in the ears of CFL, executives, whoever's making these decisions, of not coming down too hard on my guy. I want him to be back, for the back half of the year, so we can sell season tickets, so we can put people in seats, sell jerseys, stuff like that. Like I said, I don't agree with it, but like if we call it a spade, man, like he's a quarterback versus a skill position player, and he produced. He won an MOP right away, and he, not that he won them the Grey Cup, but he was the quarterback in the game basically for whether it's the fourth quarter, whatever, this, that, and the third. He was still the guy that was under center that won them that game. You come back, have an MLP season, like you mentioned, 4,000 yards. So he's having exciting brand of football. And like I said, rejuvenating that market a little bit, right? Obviously, Andrew Harrison, that Grey Cup, all those guys coming over, AJ Ouellette and stuff like that kind of was the start of that. But him really taking off with that and really putting, I feel like, fire back in the fan base. Do I agree with it? Like I said, no. But I think that's just, that's probably the facts between like the two different scenarios. Now, do I know that for sure? Absolutely not. But I would think, like, what else? What do you think, Shane, personally?
Again, I think the big difference is that one's civil, one's criminal. I just use Messam because he was the first one to come off the top of my head. But Ottawa had a guy, I think in 2022 or 2020, early, like either 2020 or 2021, who they released because he had a criminal charge pending. And the CFL was like, yeah, we're done. I think it's probably more with like the civil versus criminal. Maybe there's some factors. Maybe I'm a little bit naive, or I hope the CFL is more morally, right in that at the end of the day is selling tickets more important than creating a welcoming environment when you've pushed so hard to have this like diversity of strength, women in football. Like the CFL has done so much to push that. Like we are a very welcoming community, very welcoming league. Um, maybe I'm a little bit naive and optimistic that they would put that before putting the ticket sales. But maybe I'm wrong in that regard. But I don't know. I mean, I don't agree with the 9 game. I think it should be more. I think you go up to the maximum allowable, and maybe 9 games was. I don't know. But this could go one or two ways with how they play, and it's not going to be done talking about it. People are going to continue to talk about it. We're going to talk about it next offseason. We're going to talk. It's going to be talked about until, like, as long as he's in the league, no matter what he does, it's going to be talked about.
Don't let him win. Don't let him win the Grey Cup this year, because that would be a media firestorm that the league does not need or want. I swear to God, if he pulls this rabbit out of his hat and he does go to the Grey Cup, knock on wood, that media scrum will be a piece of work.
Yeah, well said.
Good.
Lastly, boys, just to end the conversation here, I know Shane mentioned it about just being genuine, and Coach talking about Twitter fingers and stuff like that. I really feel like he hasn't been genuine, which has kind of been the most disturbing part about this. I don't know if either you guys watched the little press availability that he was made available to the media and stuff like that. It seemed very PR prepared. Now, is that a surprise? Probably not, considering the circumstances and the Toronto Argonauts not wanting their asset to make a fool of himself, considering that he's shown that in the past. Shane mentioned about the stipulations and wanting to know. I believe one of the reporters actually asked him to share, and he declined. But just seems like he wasn't really genuine. And to go back to hoping the CFL doesn't set an example to just because Chad Kelly's a quarterback and a good quarterback that he can get away with this stuff. I think Justin Dunk and JC Abbott were talking about this on 3 Down this week about what if Toronto's, the guy that sells popcorn or tickets at the front gate, what if he, was in this sort of scenario? He'd be fired on spot, right? In terms of Chad Kelly's getting another second opportunity. I know it's a little different, but you're setting the standard in your organization that at the top, you can kind of get away with things because of who you are. Does that trickle down in the organization? Maybe not, but I think it's not a great look overall for Toronto. And I don't think it's a surprise that I think even a lot of Argos fans are kind of turning against their team to a certain extent. And I think outside of that fan base, that I think everybody else wants to see them probably not win a lot of games with Chad Kelly under center here down the stretch. So let's forget about that topic for hopefully a while until hopefully next year, until we hear about Chad Kelly getting released or something like that. But lastly, Coach, I was curious about your thoughts. Actually, you're the first person I thought about. Chris Jones getting the gig in Hamilton to become, I know it's not officially labeled as a defensive coordinator because of contract
he's
situations
a
with the Edmonton
senior
Elks still.
defensive assistant.
But I believe Farhan Lalji reported that he will be calling plays for Hamilton. So we talk about the rich getting richer. I think the poor get poorer, if that's a word, in Hamilton, with Chris Jones coming over to take over the defensive duties in Hamilton. Coach, what are your thoughts? Like I said, you were the first person I thought of.
I mean,
go buy your merch.
Go buy my merch. No, I think he'll bring a discipline. He'll bring a discipline to the defense that they were lacking. Is he going to change the trajectory of their season? No. I don't think Chris Jones is a bad defensive coordinator. I think some guys are meant to just be coordinators and some guys are meant to be head coaches. I throw him in the same category as Craig Dickinson. And y'all know how I feel about Craig. So just play your role, do your job. You got 2 old farts over there, Milanovic and fucking Chris Jones. So
Shane, what are your thoughts, bud?
I don't know. Like, I saw the reports and I'm like, this can't be true. Like, you're not, like, sure, make him change with Mark Washington. He's been there 5 years, whatever. But, like, man,
He's been unemployed for like 2 weeks.
Chris Jones? Really? And, like, okay, you know what? I'll give him credit. He's a senior defensive assistant. He's not getting paid for the rest of the year. So, like,
No, by Hamilton. Isn't Edmonton still paying him?
yeah, Edmonton's paying him out. So, like, you know what? Sure. But I feel like Chris Jones hates the CFL. And he's doing it because it's a job, but he actually doesn't enjoy the CFL. And he's like, this is my biggest problem with him as a head coach. He has tried. He did this when his first stint in Edmonton. He tries to Americanize the CFL game.
Yes.
And it doesn't work. Like, the reason why he won it, he wasn't the reason they won in 2015. Michael Riley willed that Edmonton team to beat Ottawa in 2015. But overall, I think it's a bad move. I think, if I remember correctly, Milanovic and Jones, like, Jones was Milanovich's DC when they won the Grey Cup in 2012 with Ricky Ray at quarterback. And, like, they have a long history of working together, so I'm not surprised. As they say it in hockey, the old white men's club comes back to strike again.
You said it, not me.
It's the same thing, right? Buddies helping buddies. I mean, we see it all over the place. Like, Saskatchewan's the same thing with Mace, like, friends working with friends who have a history together. So I'm not shocked he ended up in Hamilton. I'm kind of surprised it happened this soon. I thought it was going to be an off-season thing. Maybe Jones would take some time to relax and recuperate and come back in the off season. I was not expecting him to come back in like 2 weeks after being fired.
I agree. I like what Coach said though about, maybe holding out a little bit of hope because he is, I feel like, a better defensive coordinator, not having to handle the responsibilities of being a head coach. Maybe, just maybe, he can rally that Hamilton defense. But I'll hold out hope for that one. But let's end news and notes there, boys, before we get too long.
What if they fire Milanovic and make him the head coach?
Oh,
then they don't deserve to win another game.
Man, that would light my little black heart up.
Going from, like, Orlando Steiner to Milanovic to Jones is like your ex getting, like, downgrading after leaving you. Like, and you're looking at there and you're like, man, you really hit the shitter. Like, you went from me to that.
What was that movie? Forrest Gump with Jenny. And Jenny y'all seen Forrest Gump, right?
Yeah.
You see how down bad Jenny was, and then he took care of her, and then she's still fucking up. Like, come on.
Yeah, Hamilton can't get out of their own way. But I mean, again, I'm not shocked. This is a team that hasn't won a Grey Cup since '99,
and they won't let it go.
They fucked themselves in 2013, or 2014 with the block in the back on Speedy B's return.
Yeah.
They threw an interception to Winnipeg in overtime. Like their quarterback forgot to show up in 2019. It kind of. I mean, again, like, I don't know. I want to like Hamilton. They have some really good players, James Butler, Tim White. Their offensive line has been one of the best all year, statistically. Even I think they've been graded as a top O-line by PFF like 4 times so far this season, 4 or 5 times this season as the top-rated O-line. But, man, they make it hard to be, like, I feel bad for their fans. Like, I know Ottawa's had, like, a struggles the last couple of years, but, man, Hamilton makes it, like, has made it hard to be a fan. I feel for them.
Oh yeah. You feel bad for the Hamilton fans, but they got their delusionals. You know what I'm saying? Every year is their year,
I mean, to be fair, half of them are Leaf fans, so they're just used to the delusion of winning a championship every year just to be let down in the first round. Hamilton's case is just not getting to the playoffs.
Nah, that's Simone Lawrence. blowing smoke up everybody's ass. But let's move on, Cole, before I start saying stuff that's offensive to the great Simone Lawrence.
All right, let's do it, boys. Week 12 CFL picks. Let's get into it first. We have tomorrow night's matchup: the Saskatchewan Rough Riders traveling to TO, take on the Argos in Chad
Yeah.
Go
Kelly's
Rough
debut.
Riders!
Yes.
Go
Take
Rough
on Chad
Riders!
Kelly's in debut. Coach, I'll throw it to you first. Who do you got and why?
Man, your first game back against our secondary. Boy, I tell you, I'm expecting us to light that motherfucker up. I want the diddler to be buried. Go Riders and fuck Chad Kelly. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
Dude, I want to
Riders.
see Kelly on the ground more times than not. Top
I want to
defensive
see his helmet this way.
This is the best defensive line with 26 sacks going against statistically tied for the last place offensive line in sacks given up with 23. Tied with Ottawa. I want to see Kelly eating dirt consistently. Like I want Saskatchewan to put up like 5, 6, 7 sacks. I don't care about the score. Like Saskatchewan will win 10-3. I just want Saskatchewan's defense to have like 4 picks and just sack the hell out of Kelly this week. Make his return miserable.
Oh, I was about to say something out of I'm gonna try and PG-13 this. This is the blackest defense I have ever seen, and I want it to. I can't say that part. Let me clean it up. I want it to be a prison party, and I just want them to violate Chad Kelly so bad. But next.
All right, clean sweep. Blake puts in the chat as well. He's got the Riders. I do as well. I think it's a bad time to be Chad Kelly and the Argos coming back against this defense, and then Trevor Harrison on offense will, I think, do enough to get the W. And I think Saskatchewan, it's their time to kind of hit their stride now. They've obviously lost. I think it's 3 of 4 or 4 or 5, one of the two. And I think it's their time to kind of get back into the groove here and start to get some wins and pile them up into the back half of the year. So I'm going to go Riders. Blake will as well to make it a clean sweep for the first game of the week. Game number 2 is Friday night. Hamilton Tiger Cats traveling to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I'll start, obviously. I'm going to go Winnipeg riding a high, and Hamilton obviously continuing to be Hamilton. Shane, who do you got?
Got Winnipeg. Also, can we just take a quick second to talk about how Bo Levi Mitchell and McLeod Bethel Thompson got benched, and the quarterback they got benched for ended up getting hurt. Mm-hmm. So now they're back starting.
I forgot to mention that in 3-minute drill too. That Taylor Powell got hurt almost right away.
Like never have I seen.
But that was it was like one of the first 2 drives, I believe, of the game. No.
Yeah, it was after I can't pronounce his last name, but the guy also prayers up to
Luther Hockenabon
or Luther, yeah, Luther Hocken. Yeah. I can't pronounce that last name. I'm not
going to. Luther Hockenabon.
But prayers up to him. But yeah, I think it was like the second or third play after that incident where he got hit in the head and was out of the game, and now he's on the 6-game IL. So, you may want to take Bo out as a starter, but football gods are like, nah, man, we ain't gonna do this.
We ain't got to sell lemonade no more, baby. Daddy got his job back.
Yeah, but I'm taking Winnipeg. I want Hamilton to trade Bo Levi, and I want them to trade Butler and Tim White because they don't deserve what's going on. Same thing with Peters. Like they don't deserve what's going on in Hamilton right now. But I'm taking Winnipeg. That defense is too nasty. That offense is starting to get finding their groove. Lawler's back. Dembski's looking good. Caleros is looking like he's starting to find his groove. I think Winnipeg takes it here and goes to 5-6 and is starting to sneak up behind the Lions and Rough Riders.
All right, let's get into I got the Bombers as well, so does Blake. So I guess 2 clean sweeps to start here. I think not much to be said. Hamilton sucks, to be just blunt about it, and Winnipeg's riding a high right now, and they're also at home. So could Bo Levi Mitchell maybe do what he's been doing all season and keep them in the game to make it close enough where maybe Winnipeg falls a little bit late, but I don't think so. I think Winnipeg's smelling blood in the water. They realize that they're only one game back of BC and Saskatchewan. They need to keep winning so they can keep hopes alive to finish first, because it's well within front of them if they do keep winning here, and BC and Saskatchewan keep stumbling. So clean sweep for both the first games of the week. BC and Ottawa. Shane and Blake will be in the house for this one. Shane obviously making the trip out east.
You mean Blake?
Sorry, Blake making the trip out east. Honest to God, boys, I have no idea what I'm gonna pick with this one, and I think maybe a little me is maybe a little bit naive, because I'm hoping that the BC Lions at least win the Touchdown Pacific that I'm going to. So I don't know where to reside or to go with my picks here, because I kind of agree. Shane mentioned it a little bit earlier of saying that BC needs to at least split. I think that is a realistic thing with Ottawa being a very good team. This one, the first one being traveling to Ottawa, I think is a tough one. So I'm interested to see how this one plays out. I'm going to back my way out of picking to this last. So, Coach, who do you got and why?
I'm gonna go with Ottawa. Too many big playmakers, even though they don't have Khalil Pimpleton. Still too many weapons, too much firepower, and that's going to overwhelm that secondary. They're going to cause mistakes and miscommunication. I do like Ottawa's defense still. Questions about that secondary a little bit too, but just a chemistry thing. But I got Ottawa.
Shane, who do you got and why?
I mean, I got Ottawa. I mean, Drew Brown's expected to get the start, so it's going to be, sounds like Drew Brown versus Nathan Rourke, which should be a lot of fun to watch. But I mean, yeah, I mean, even without Pimpleton, which it sucks because, he was on the 6th game. He injured it against Saskatchewan. He still played through it. But losing him for the 6th game sucks. But overall, I agree. Like too many weapons. I think Armstead puts up 100 yards. Dude, he's a freak. He runs over people. His running ability is so nice. Against that defense that has trouble stopping the run, I think Ottawa's going to go run heavy, and they're just going to put up yards. They're going to pound the rock early. And yeah, I mean, that offensive line hasn't been great either. So overall, I think Ottawa's just a better team right now. But I'm excited to watch Nathan Rourke live. Should be a good game.
Crazy to think of the Ottawa Redblacks running back situation compared to what was coming into the season, the thoughts and concerns going into the league. It seems like they've I know you specifically were quite boisterous on Twitter and stuff like that of being what the possibilities were and stuff like that. And then it seems like Armstead has been quite defined and a pretty good back here. I don't know what do you know his age off by hand? Is he still younger?
And I mean, like, he's 25. He was a former 5th round draft pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2019. I mean, name a team that wouldn't have questions when they lose their top 2 running backs in like a week and a half, not even a week and a half, like 4 days. Devontae Williams was announced as having a surgery on his Achilles on April 18th, and then Jackson Bennett retired like 4 days later on the 22nd to join the government, I believe. So like. And yeah, I mean, Armstead doesn't classify as a rookie because of the CFL's stupid rookie rules, but first-year player in the league, putting on pace to put up 1,500 total yards or all-purpose yards from line of scrimmage. Like, I've been very impressed with him, and yeah, definitely a nice surprise to this season.
All right, Blake has put in the chat he's got BC. Now this leaves me very conflicted, very confused. I think I'm going to go with BC because I think I need to will them into victory here. I think losing another game is just too detrimental to their long-term view on the season. Even if you were to split, I think you don't get the full benefits of you're just 500 again. You go back to 6-6. You don't really gain ground, and just looking, we talked about it. Winnipeg's playing Hamilton. I would imagine they're going to probably get a victory. Saskatchewan. Let's see how I guess the Argos respond, but if they get a victory as well, I think you need to try to at least keep pace with them. So, am I confident, gentlemen? Not very. But we are going to will the hell out of this victory and hope to pull it out of the hat. Just like Coach is riding with his Calgary Stampeders and his cousin. I'm going with the BC Lions and Nathan Rourke to pull off the victory in Ottawa and move to 6-5 and hope to God that they can get out of this slump here that they have been in for the last, I would say, 6 weeks. So Blake and I will take the Lions. You guys take Ottawa. Let's get to the final matchup of the week, which is on
Just an
Sunday. Is this our
onslaught.
last Sunday game of the year, actually?
No. Next week,
No.
Next week.
Blue Bombers
Labor Day game.
Labor Day Sunday.
So
But
the
everything
last
else
one,
is
which
Saturday.
I'm very interested to hear your guys' take, just because I think maybe I was seeing that wrong, what Blake put in the chat. He does. So who do you guys got on Sunday between Montreal and Edmonton? I will go to Shane first. Shane, who do
Got
you got?
Montreal. Like the
Upset?
Alouettes are too good. I'm never gonna pick against the Alouettes. As of right now, just because of the way they're playing. It could be a trap game for them. I get it. But with Fajardo back, he's gonna want to put an emphasis, being like, "Hey, I'm still the starter." Like, what Alexander did was great, but like, I'm the starter. I'm the guy. I'm the one who's gonna lead us to another Grey Cup. And I mean, again, I McLeod Bethel Thompson has put up numbers, but that defense is also just too good. I don't know if McLeod can outplay that defense. Like, I just don't know if he can keep the ball away from some of those guys on defense before to put him in a situation to win. So I'm taking Montreal.
Coach?
Ooh, this is a tough one because I want to stick with my black people. I'm gonna go with Montreal, but
it's a big butt.
That is a big butt. Is that butt you're changing your pick, or is that
there might be a change?
He wants to, hey, Coach? Coach, you want to know who Blake's pick is first?
Who?
He's got the Elks. You can jump. You can dip your toe in the water, Coach. There's somebody that, they're in there with you. They jumped off the diving board first. That's all you need.
But it's Blake.
That's
Blake
true.
gonna let me drown.
No, hey, Blake's leading the season series so far.
The only reason why I would switch is because I love that Edmonton defense. That linebacking core is nasty, and it's going to be a matchup of Walter Fletcher and Niles Morgan running downhill. But I'm gonna go with my black people. I'm gonna stick with black people. Edmonton.
Okay, so we have
I can't. McLeod Bethel Thompson starting, so I'm not really sticking with black people. You know what?
Jarius and T-Roy.
What about Austin Mack and Beverett?
Gino Lewis
and Sankey.
He just bought Scantleton.
Right, you know what? Yep. I'm gonna go with Edmonton. But before, I know we're not talking about Hamilton and all that, but what if Hamilton traded Bo Levi to Toronto and Toronto gave up Chad Kelly? Milanovic, Jones, Kelly.
3 assholes?
They'd be like, they'd be perfect.
That's what I'm saying. I just thought about that. We were talking about. I just had to throw that out there. That would be Bo with Dinwiddie and them pieces. That's nasty. Let Bo ride off into the sunset. But Chad in the ass puckering city.
I'd be fine with it, but
I would laugh all season.
Okay, so Coach, you're going on Edmonton. Blake,
trade forward to Toronto in the offseason.
Huh?
Trade forward to Toronto in the offseason.
As long as he's out of Edmonton. Which actually reminds me, quickly remind me after we get through this, boys, to remind you about Edmonton, just if I forget. But
yeah,
I fucked up last week by breaking my rule with Montreal, picking against them. I picked the Riders. At first, coming into this segment, I was a little bit leaning on the fence. I like that you mentioned trap game. I think this could be something of a trap game with Edmonton riding high. That being said, I will be like Shane and not pick with Montreal until proven wrong. I will not learn my lesson for 2 weeks in a row and pick against them. Montreal is too good, so I will go with Montreal. And that will end the Week 12 CFL picks, boys. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the ownership in Edmonton with Larry Thompson obviously taking over, being announced, I believe, early in last week. What do you think this does stability-wise in Edmonton? You just mentioned with Trey Ford going to Edmonton or going to Toronto. They have a very big thing to handle this upcoming offseason if they want Trey Ford to possibly be the quarterback of the future. Maybe they want MBT. But what do you think about the ownership and how tall of a task do you think he has in Edmonton to, get some stability here quick?
I mean, all that matters is you win. That organization is such a like that fan base is like they crave a winning fan base. They're not going to go out if you're producing like 4-14 seasons. Like that's just not how it's going to work. You need to win. You need to put a consistently winning product on that field. I don't care what you call them. At the end of the day, if the reason you're staying away from a football team is because of the name or the name change, unless it's being changed to like a truly problematic name, but overall, the going from that name to the Elks shouldn't be that big of a deal if you actually love the team. But I can understand why people aren't going when you're 4-14. Ottawa had the same issues. It's just a lot more daunting when you're in such a big like stadium that Edmonton's in. But at the end of the day, he just needs to be willing to put a winning team together. Who cares what the name is? If you want to change the name and rebrand, change the name and rebrand. But at the end of the day, that's not going to start people coming back to the field. You need to start winning games. You need to be in playoff contention. You need to be a competitive playoff caliber, Grey Cup caliber team, or it's all for loss. And he's a former season ticket holder. He should know this. I expect Edmonton to be a big player come February's free agency.
Coach, what do you think about the Edmonton Elks' new ownership?
I want you to clip this. What I'm about to say.
Can do.
Let G-Roy keep being the general manager, get the fuck out the way, make money, and let G-Roy build this team into a fucking contender. I'm a big G-Roy Simon fan. Love G-Roy. Even just watching him handle the draft, that man has a presence. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Taught me how to do that dance too. But anyway, let that man run. Let that man be the general manager. Keep the head coach. Now, also, you need to keep Trey. Keep Trey. You got to re-sign Gino. You got to re-sign Gino. Gino's a leader. Gino's a person that, even though statistically it doesn't show that, he's still a presence that you want in your locker room. Shore up that defense. Get a strong offensive line. And just don't try to meddle in the football stuff. Trust and get the right people around them. And if you want to rebrand, okay. But if you want them people that staying away because of a name, then maybe you really weren't an Edmonton fan.
Exactly.
Like, see, even me being a Seahawks fan all my life, I've seen us through some dog years, and I've seen people drop off after we lost the Super Bowl. And all the Legion of Boom guys left. Man, just be a fan and love the team through thick and thin. That's just what it is. So I'm not really. I've kind of heard a couple things about him. He got money, a little senile, but hey, because he was talking, and I was like, oh, you wanted him, okay. But let G-Roy run the show. That's more important to me than just who the owner is.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think. Let G-Roy run it, keep Jackson. You just got to build a winning team, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you want to make money, you got to make a winning team. If he allows them to spend money, because we all know the CFL is a soft cap. Like, it's not a hard cap. You want to pay the fine to go over the cap, pay the fine to go over the cap. If he wins a Grey Cup, let's say in the next 3 years, if Edmonton can get in, win a Grey Cup, especially with Trey Ford at quarterback, it doesn't matter the team name. That's a license to print money. They'll right
take
there.
Off.
You have your first Canadian quarterback to win a Grey Cup since I think Russ Jackson did it with Ottawa in the 60s. Like, you have all of this Canadian quarterback wins a Grey Cup type of storyline. You will print money. Like, it's just, you will print more money than you would have spent. And between the merch, the storylines, the ticket sales, all of it. You build around Trey Ford, you put a winning product on the team, and you let the money roll in. And it's simple. It's as clear as day.
Have you guys ever seen the show The Boondocks?
Yes, that show's a great.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they did the election and then Riley said, "I'm only voting for Obama because he black." That's
Yeah.
how I feel. That's how I feel about Edmonton. I'm rooting for him because it's going to be dark in Edmonton for the next couple of years, baby.
I love it. I love it.
But I
Well
mean, again,
said.
you're also going to get a lot of people who aren't Edmonton fans rooting for Edmonton just because Trey Ford's quarterback, because it's a
Straightforward, yeah.
Canadian
Exactly.
quarterback, and right, and like, you have Senecal, who should be a top, like a first round pick in next year's draft if he decides to go that route. If Trey Ford can lead Edmonton to a playoff team, and Senecal can come in and perform and develop and be a good quality starter, we could see a complete shift in Canadian quarterbacks and how they're viewed in this league. And you could be a catalyst for it. And
I think
that in itself just is another reason to print money, because people are going to be like, wow, I want to get a Trade Ford jersey. Like, you're going to have kids who are playing youth football, who are playing provincial, like the CGFL or the amateur provincial leagues in
even
the
Pop
summer.
Warner and stuff, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Being like, man, there's a Canadian quarterback. I want his jersey. Right? We've seen it all
they
the
want
time.
the kid market. They want the kid market, which is something that they struggle in CFL. They're trying to get that. Who wouldn't want to be? Look at all the kids in the States who love Lamar Jackson, who love these young quarterbacks.
Look at the U Sports market too, right? If you have two U Sports Canadian quarterbacks, like Nathan Rourke is great, and winning a Grey Cup and winning a Grey Cup with Nathan Rourke again will give BC a license to print money, because again, Canadian quarterback wins the Grey Cup. He went to the NCAA. There's an extra level, an extra layer there for Edmonton to tap into money wise. You have a U Sports Canadian quarterback, a U Sports developed, graduated Canadian quarterback leading a CFL team to a Grey Cup. There's no way you can't make money off of that.
Yeah, well said.
Stay loyal to the soil.
I think the best part about this upcoming class too, I'm glad you mentioned Senecal, but like, not saying Senecal is going to hit or whatnot, but there's a few guys that I think could get possibly drafted. I believe there's one guy, Christian, I forget his last name, but he attended the combine this past year. I believe spent some time in the NCAA, and then there's obviously the U Sports guys, Taylor Elgersma, I believe, for Laurier. Jackson Judinsky, I believe, is another guy that was at the combine, so could get some looks. I think the best part of that is just like the sheer numbers. You'd hope, obviously it's probably a little bit more unrealistic than me just hoping, but you'd hope that, if 4 guys get drafted, maybe one of them finds a way to be not a starter, but on a roster come, day one of the next regular season. So I'm excited for hopefully Trey Ford to re-energize the next generation of quarterbacks.
You also have Curtis Rourke, who should be draft eligible who should be in the draft next year. Like, if I remember correctly, I think they were talking about it at the combine last year. I'll have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure there could be up to 5 quarterbacks drafted. And like, if everything goes well, if they have strong U Sports seasons, there's 5 and NCAA seasons. There are 5 quarterbacks that could make an argument for teams to draft at some point in the draft. Like,
which has that ever even happened before?
I don't think so.
Has there been even like multiple quarterbacks ever taken before? Probably not.
I don't think so. So
history in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's all speculation based off of last year, but realistically, if you have 5 Canadian quarterbacks drafted, or even like 3, and 2 of them are U Sports, man, that does nothing but create. Oh man, I can actually go to U Sports, produce at the U Sports level as a quarterback, and actually have a chance at the CFL if I produce at U Sports, which we haven't had consistently, like, honestly, since the 60s. So, like, if you're Edmonton, you are looking at Trey Ford. You're signing Trey Ford long-term to a 3-year deal. You're building around him. You're building around the brand that he is a Canadian U Sports developed quarterback who's going to lead this team to a Grey Cup. You have a bunch of Waterloo people who may be fans of Toronto or Hamilton start watching your games, buying your merch purely because they were fans of Trey Ford when he was at Waterloo.
These be the good old days.
Well said, boys. That will pretty much wrap up another week of the Canadian Football Fanatics weekly show. Talked it all. Montreal, BC struggles, Saskatchewan struggles. Are the Bombers back? Chris Jones in Hamilton. You name it, we talked it. Another good week with the boys. As always, you can find their social medias and stuff in the description below. But, Coach, first, anything that the people can expect? I know you just, as we've mentioned a few times, dropped your Scamilton merch, but anything that people can expect from you this weekend?
More reactions on the way. Hey, pick up your Scamilton merch. I got hoodies. I got T-shirts. Gino Lewis, my dog, picked up one of them, and a few other CFL guys are picking them up. So if you want one,
Nike too, eh, Coach?
Nike, man. Hey, we
I see you, Coach. I
Shoot,
see you.
We try to make a little bit of paper out here.
I'll take a hat.
Oh, you're gonna love the beanie. It's got some sunglasses on it. It has 21 next to Scamilton.
I love it.
If you know, you know. But nah, hey, we got videos on the way, and we got fun with this, man.
Awesome, Coach. Thanks for joining us for another week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
All right, y'all. Take it easy.
Later, Coach.
See ya.
All right. As always, Shane's social medias are in the description, same as the 13th Man Sports. Shane, anything that we can expect from you this weekend other than the normal?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the normal. It's been kind of busy at my full-time job, so I haven't been able to put out much content. I mean, I just released Red Blacks mid-season award winners. That was a fun article to work through. A lot of hard choices, not an easy write, that's for sure. CGFL, it is a good thing. Not something I'm used to, that's for sure. CGFL is now in full swing after the first week of the OFC.
So your Sooners were in 7th?
Sooners are in 7th with a dominating win over Hurricanes. I don't know how long that's gonna stay. If you had a chance to watch their game, because it's free on the OFC website, their offensive line was kind of struggling. Right tackle looked like he was kind of learning the position, so we'll see how well that goes. But they have weapons. Like they should be a good team. Should be a top 3 team in the OFC. Hopefully, going to be able to get out to a couple of their games this year. And then obviously we have the U Sports starting up. I think they had some preseason joint practices. I don't believe it's this Saturday they start.
It is
this Saturday.
Yeah.
I can never remember if it's the Saturday before Labor Day or the Saturday after Labor Day. But I mean, hey man, U Sports is going to be crazy. I know Carleton and Ottawa U may not be the best teams this year. I believe there's a growing, like they're reestablishing their programs after they've lost a couple of vets. But I mean, I'm excited to watch Queens. Queens should be good. Western should be really good. Laurier should be up there after an impressive year last year. York should make some strides, hopefully. They've really put in a lot of time in that program, so they should be better than they were last year. So yeah, I mean, and then NFL starts in 2 weeks.
I cannot wait, buddy. I know CFL fans are very prideful when the Twitter people, especially Canadians, get out and they say, "Oh, football's back," and all the CFL fans are like, "Football's been back, man." So I know football.
There's no way to convince me that the NFL is better than the CFL when you look at a on-field product, like on-field wise. Yeah. But I mean, hey, football's football. Doesn't matter if it's UFL, XFL, whatever that league is called now. Doesn't matter if it's Arena, U Sports, NCAA starting up this weekend. I think it's this weekend for the NCAA as well. If you're a football fan, fall is a great time. So, and I mean, also if you're an Ontario person, Sooners lost the NFC Championship to the GTA All-Stars, which is kind of unfortunate, by 1 point. So, and obviously in the CAFA, if you're in Ottawa, is started up. So there's plenty of football in Ottawa. Like there's plenty of football. You got Red Blacks, you got Carleton, Ottawa, you got the CGFL, you got amateur football. It is full swing in Ottawa. I don't know about BC, but it's full swing in Ottawa. It's great. I love it. I get football on a weekly basis. And then obviously you have NCAA and NFL starting. So there should be some stuff out coming over for that kind of stuff. Hopefully on a consistent basis, and then NHL season. So and OHL/CHL season. So busy time.
Football almost on a daily basis at this point, man. As soon as high school starts here pretty soon, like you said, a good time to be a football fan.
Is high school big out in BC? Like how is BC's football structure
I
in
would
terms of like
say
youth?
I would say in certain programs. So like being in Nanaimo here, I don't know if you know anything about like John Barsby. Unfortunately, that's the rival high school that is in Nanaimo here. I went to NDSS, which is Nanaimo District. John Barsby is probably um, senior championships probably in the last 20 years. They probably won like maybe 4 or 5. So like they're pretty consistently always in the running every 4 or 5 years. That's not mentioning like appearances. And then another one on the island, Mount Doug, has been one of the better programs in Canada, I would say, in terms of like developing prospects. But then you go to like, unfortunately for me, a program like NDSS where football really wasn't important or taken seriously. So it's like tough, especially like atmospheres wise. Like you can go down to John Barsby on Friday night lights, or I guess like at a turf field, and they would have like for the border battle it's called. That's where you play like a team like north of our city basically, and we
Okay.
play the same team. We play the same team as them, but they get like 400 or 500 people show up, where we get like 25 parents kind of type thing, right? So it's like big hit or miss in terms of like program and where you are. As I'm sure you know, hockey is just incredibly huge out here, and usually that, especially because like we have a hockey academy at our school and lacrosse academy as well, or
Okay, that
did
makes
anyways.
sense.
So just kind of wasn't an important thing, but I think it's growing with like 7-on-7 and stuff like that. That's really taken off out here, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, question. The Raider I saw the videos of the Raiders.
Yep.
Is that their home field with the double sideline? And why the double sideline? Like who plays American? Like what's with the American side and the Canadian side? What's going on with that?
Okay, so this is a tough one for me. So that's at NDSS. That's my high school there.
Okay.
So I went there when it wasn't a turf field. So this is a brand new turf field, 4 years old. The Raiders just moved from their home field, Caledonia Park, where I played, where they played for the previous 17 or whatever years it was before they made the move. And for whatever reason, after COVID, they decided to move to NDSS, but it was built and painted for a American field because we play American out here in high school football. So
Okay.
we don't play Canadian. We're the only province actually that doesn't play Canadian rules in high school sports, which is for whatever reason super weird transition. So that's why it is very annoying. I'll be very honest.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe it.
Especially like when I'm filming, I kind of I see it in my peripheral. So sometimes I'll stop because I feel like he's out of bounds. So I'll kind of like I'll be like, oh, he's out of bounds. So like I'll kind of lose train of thought or lose like concentration on filming the rest of the play, and I've lost a couple clips because like he's just out of the camera angle because I'm like he's out of bounds, but he's 4 or 5 yards inbounds. So it's a tough one, but I guess it's home for now.
Yeah, because I
But
was just generally curious on it because I saw that I'm like, why is there the double field? That's interesting that you guys do American football, like American rules in high school.
only province too in Canada,
Yeah,
which is
because
is
like
very odd.
I mean I know for Ottawa we're not huge in high school football. Like there's high school football, there's high school programs, but like our youth program, like our youth league, or it's called
Community football.
yeah, it's called NCAFA. It's the National Capital Amateur Football Association,
Yeah.
um, and it goes from like it takes the entire Ottawa Valley. There's Gatineau and Cornwall. Like it's massive. Like the territory of this league is massive. Um, so like that's our major one. Like you play and then you play OSFL, which is the Ontario Summer Football League, and they play and NCAFA
Is
plays
that
as part of.
is OSFL, is that with like the programs like when they like wear the Western helmets and stuff like that? And like the
No, but
tie.
you no. So well, I mean, depends on the team, but like OSFL is like our provincial level. So
Okay.
it's a summer provincial level of football, and then you have the OPFL, which is what like the high, like I think it's midget or U18 and U16 programs play under, or in U14, which is the Ontario Provincial Fall League, which then plays against like the GTA League. So for us, amateur football in Ontario is bigger than high school, and then obviously U Sports. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not Quebec, we're not Laval, but football is and like obviously flag is big, 7-on-7 is getting bigger. Ottawa is like I won't even say surprisingly, but it's a massive football community in Ottawa. But if you're not part of it, you're not going to notice it.
Have you? I'm sure you've been to Panda game, obviously, probably.
Once I will not go again. It is too much chaos for my liking. Too much. There's just people are. It's a giant frat party. The best way to do it, like people are there to get drunk and have fun. Trying to go there to enjoy the game. Not very possible unless you're in like an area that isn't like all students. It's not very possible to go in there and just enjoy the game without having to deal with like very intoxicated university kids that are literally just there to get drunk and party.
To get fucked up, yeah.
Yeah. So great experience the first time I went. Might try to go this year. But definitely not on like I'm gonna make myself available to go type list because I just being in that crowd, it's not my scene, not my vibe, not my thing.
Not your forte. That's all good though. Well said. First of all, my buddy went to the University of Carleton actually head coach Sean Rapsey for the Raiders. I played with him a few years for the Raiders, and then he went to the University of Carleton. He mentioned obviously his experience was different because he's on the field playing, but he mentioned just that atmosphere was super cool for him to experience something like that with the rivalry and stuff. So just wanted to hear if you've been, but long way of saying great time to be a football fan, man. Whatever league you don't want to watch, there's some football for you to consume from, community on up to high school, CGFL, CFL, and U Sports this upcoming week. I believe actually Laval and the RSAQ kick off a game Friday night and then into Saturday as well. So as I always mention on the show, if you guys are in any of those cities, please get out and support some Canadian football. Lastly, Shane, before I get you out of here, buddy, I love to see the CJFL content coming from you and 13th Man Sports as well. It's been a lot of fun following along and just keeping up to date with the Ottawa Sooners and what they got going on and stuff like that. Just being out in BC, I always kept an eye on the OFC, but never really had somebody to kind of like update on social media and stuff like that. So it's been cool kind of following along and stuff like that and just getting more Canadian football content out there, buddy. I salute to you and good job. Keep it up. So we will see you next Wednesday, Shane, and say hi to Blake for me. Make sure he gets back out west safe and sound.
Well, just to say about Blake, he ended up being on TV at the
Blue Jays
game. Yeah. So
did he post on Twitter?
Yeah, I think so. Clark Monroe posted, and then Blake retweeted it. But yeah, he was on TV with the Blue Jays game. It did not go well. It started off really well. It did not end well.
And you know what's funny? Two things. Blake is unbelievable at getting on TV, usually in BC because his seats are so good in BC. He's usually on TSN. Number two, though, this kind of adds to the Rider fans are everywhere because if you look at the picture, he's sitting with three guys wearing a Riders hat. So this just adds
my TV moment. I have two TV moments. Yeah. One, I did a thing on I think it was CTV Winnipeg during 2020 about the COVID year. But the Vancouver Ottawa game, Bobby Ryan's first home game back after the or second home game back from after he got out of the player assistance program, where he scored a hat trick against the Canucks. Yeah. I am on the broadcast losing my shit because I called it before the game. I'm like, he's gonna score a hat trick, and he did. I'm wearing my Bobby Ryan jersey. I am losing my shit. It's on Sportsnet or TSN. It's on there. It's on YouTube. But yeah, those are my top two TV moments.
Awesome. I got to find those in the archives somewhere. But Shane, thanks so much for joining us as always, buddy. Enjoy the game this weekend. Like I said, make sure Blake gets back safe and sound out west because we got to do the whole thing over again for TD Pacific. I wish you a good time, but I don't wish you luck, buddy, because the BC Lions need to get a win this weekend in a big way. In a big way. So enjoy the weekend, buddy, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Have a good one. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Later, Shane. That was Shane Ryan of 13th Man Sports for another weekly show. Lastly, before we get out of here, folks, I will present to you guys this week's BCFC weekly picks. I know Blake and I usually do this. Blake isn't able to join us this week, as you guys know, but he put in the chat his picks. So I will give you his first, and then I'll give you guys mine. Blake's going to go with, in the first matchup of the week, the Valley Huskers traveling to the Langley Rams. Blake, being the Langley Rams fan, has the Langley Rams. I do as well. I think Langley has looked pretty good this season. I think as of now, they're probably the second best team in the BCFC, with West Shore still having a little bit to say in that conversation. I think if they get an impressive win this weekend, which I hope isn't going to happen, they could rise in my power rankings in my head. That is TBD, though. The next game of the week is a tough one, to be honest. I joked with Wizard Takes, all the guys that we do the weekly picks with, Peak Photography, Langley Rams Mob Squad, that I plead the fifth on this one. I would really not like to answer this one. Kamloops traveling to Prince George, two teams that have struggled this year. Although Prince George did beat the Raiders in week 1, they just are coming off a 70-0 defeat to the Okanagan Sun. So not much confidence in this one. Now, that being said, I'm going to go with the Prince George Kodiaks as well as Blake. So we both got PG, both got Langley. I think PG will be doing just enough to get the victory. Although Kamloops maybe has the best players in this matchup with, Colton Melky. I think Keegan Curtis is a better player. He's not, a outstanding player by any means, but he's a good player. As well as another one of the defensive backs, but is slipping my name right now. But I will go with the Prince George Kodiaks because I think they are the more well-rounded team. Lastly, we have the Vancouver Island Raiders traveling down the island to take on their island rival, the West Shore Rebels. Blake has put in the chat the VI Raiders. Love to hear from Blake. And I, too, am going for the VI Raiders. Now, I've been called a homer for the last few weeks picking the Raiders, but I think they have proven me right that they have been a competitive team here over the last month of the season to start the year. And I think they have been in all the games here so far to prove me that they can win some of these games and they can play with some of the best teams in the BCFC. So, Blake and I going with the same picks in this week's BCFC Week 6 picks. That will end the pick segment. And as we always like to say, folks, if you guys are in Winnipeg, Ottawa, Montreal, or Toronto, and Langley, Prince George, and West Shore, please get out this weekend and consume some sort of Canadian football. As mentioned before Shane got off here, some youth sports starting up. I believe it is mostly RSAQ and OUA. I believe the Canada West is going to start up next weekend with some exhibitions, but youth sports is on the schedule this weekend, so consume it in any way possible. If not, enjoy your last few weeks before it is in the full swing. To recap the matchups this week, we have the Saskatchewan Roughriders traveling to Toronto. We have the Hamilton Tiger Cats traveling to Winnipeg. We have the BC Lions traveling to Ottawa and the Edmonton Elks traveling to Montreal. I think that will be all the reminders for this week's show, guys. As always, like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate the support so much here on the channel. Head over to our Instagram page at Canadian Football Fanatics. Please follow us, get us over 900 followers, and let's push to 1,000 before, let's say, the end of the year. Get 100 and I think it's 10 more followers by Grey Cup. That would be awesome. As well as Twitter or X at _CF Fanatics. Follow us there. Like all of our content that's being put up on there as well. And then obviously on YouTube at Canadian Football Fanatics as well. And we are live on the 13th Man Sports Facebook page. Go follow all their stuff. Like I mentioned, the link will be in the description. They have, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as well as the personals for Shane, Coach, and Blake. Missed Blake on this episode, but it was another good show talking all things Canadian football. We will be back for your regular scheduled program next Wednesday. Blake will be back from his trip to the East Coast. But last reminders, you guys can expect a preview. The game is played on Saturday, so you can expect a preview Friday morning not Friday morning, going to work Friday afternoon, I'd say, previewing the game against the Ottawa Red Blacks. Stay tuned for that one. Should be a good time. Blake and I will have to find some time to record that one, get that out to you guys. And then update for the post-game show this week. Unfortunately, there will be no post-game show once again. Saturday I'll be in Victoria. The BC Lions kick off in Ottawa at 4 o'clock. the Vancouver Island Raiders are going to be in West Shore at 7 o'clock. So I'll be able to watch the game on my phone, turn my focus to the VI Raiders, and we'll be caught up there. So no post-game show on Saturday. Depending on how Blake and I are feeling, I know Blake's traveling, so probably doubtful as of now, but maybe there'll be some sort of show or recap Sunday morning. But until then, we will see you guys next Wednesday, and hope you guys enjoyed the CFF Weekly Show.